It's incredibly common to hear someone casually toss around phrases like, oh, I'm a little OCD about my desk, or maybe I'm so OCD about keeping my closet organized.
Yeah, you hear that all the time.
But for the millions who truly live with obsessive compulsive disorder, the reality is, well, it's a universe away from just liking things tidy. It's a profound, often debilitating mental health condition.
It really is. And honestly, those casual phrases, they actually do a bit of a disservice. They minimize a condition that deeply affects thoughts, emotions, daily functioning. It's definitely not just a personality quirk. It demands much deeper understanding and, frankly, compassion than it often gets.
And that's exactly our mission today. We're taking a deep dive into understanding OCD, pulling out the most important and sometimes surprising insights from, well, a whole stack of sources, articles, research, clinical notes.
Yeah, lots to cover.
To help you, our listener, really grasp the true landscape of this often misunderstood condition.
Yeah.
We want to bring some clarity, some compassion, and importantly, real hope to the conversation. So, okay, let's unpack this right from the top. What is OCD truly? Because while the term is everywhere, I think, maybe many of us don't fully grasp its depth.
Right. At its core, OCD is defined by two interlocking components. It creates this really insidious cycle. First, you have obsessions.
Okay.
These are those persistent, intrusive, unwanted thoughts, images, or urges that just pop into your mind and cause significant anxiety or distress. They often feel genuinely impossible to control.
Impossible to control.
Wow. And then, in response to that distress, you get compulsions. These are repetitive behaviors or even mental acts that a person feels driven, almost forced to perform.
Driven.
Yeah, driven.
Yeah.
They're done to try and reduce the anxiety triggered by the obsessions, or maybe to prevent some feared event from happening.
So the very act of trying to get relief is actually, it's digging the hole deeper.
Yeah.
That sounds like a truly nasty cycle that most people just wouldn't get.
Exactly. It's a trap.
And it sounds like someone is absolutely not enjoying these rituals.
Absolutely not. And that's such a crucial distinction. These obsessions and compulsions aren't pleasurable hobbies or quirky habits. They're exhausting, frustrating, and deeply, deeply distressing.
So liking a tidy home isn't OCD.
No, but feeling overwhelming anxiety unless items are arranged in an exact, rigid way, and then maybe spending hours adjusting them for only a tiny bit of temporary relief, that starts to look more like the genuine struggle of OCD.
Okay. And that really brings us to how pop culture has, well, quite frankly, done a disservice here. It's misrepresented it quite a bit.
Oh, massively.
What are some of the most stubborn myths about OCD that we absolutely need to bust right now?
You're spot on. It's been misrepresented for decades, leading to huge misunderstandings. One really common myth is that OCD is all about cleanliness.
Right, the neat freak stereotype.
Exactly. And the truth is, while contamination fears definitely exist, many forms involve totally different obsessions. Things like fears of harming others, intrusive sexual or religious thoughts, or maybe just a pervasive nagging need for symmetry.
Okay, so much broader than clinging. What else?
Another common one is that people with OCD are just perfectionists. Now, there can be an overlap sometimes,
Sure.
but perfectionism is more of a personality trait. OCD is a disorder fundamentally driven by anxiety and this desperate need to neutralize distress. That's a key difference.
So it's not about wanting things perfect, but needing them right in a very specific way to sort of ward off a threat.
Precisely, to stop the anxiety, basically. And then there's this really damaging idea that, well, if you can work and function, your OCD isn't that serious.
Not as dangerous.
It is, because it's simply untrue. Many individuals with OCD become incredibly adept at masking their symptoms. They might be enduring silent distress for hours every single day. The severity is absolutely not determined by outward appearance. It's a hidden battle for so many people.
That distinction is so vital because, look, we all have unwanted thoughts sometimes or routines we like. How do we draw that line between just a quirk and the profound impact of OCD?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The key difference really lies in the intensity, the persistence, and the debilitating emotional impact.
Okay.
For someone with OCD, these intrusive thoughts happen repeatedly, often for hours a day, and they feel genuinely impossible to shake. And the compulsions, they aren't done for enjoyment, not at all. They're performed to prevent some imagined disaster or just to ease an unbearable, crushing anxiety. These behaviors are often incredibly time-consuming. Literally hours vanish from a person's day.
Hours? Wow.
Oh, yeah. and trying to resist them. That can cause extreme emotional distress, even panic attacks sometimes. So it's not about having quirks, it's about being caught in this relentless cycle where your mind feels like it's under
All the
siege.
receipts.
And the body responds with rituals, mental or physical, that only provide this fleeting, unsatisfying relief. It just fuels the whole thing.
So if it's not just quirks, what does OCD look like day to day? And what's actually happening underneath the surface, in the brain?
Well, the symptoms of OCD vary so widely, which honestly can make it hard to spot sometimes. For some people, they're highly visible, like, repeated hand washing or constantly checking locks, obvious stuff.
Okay.
But for many others, the signs are entirely internal. Things like mental repetition of certain phrases, or silent counting, or maybe endlessly replaying scenarios in their mind to check for mistakes.
So completely invisible to an outsider.
Totally invisible,
Yeah.
but just as consuming, just as distressing.
Can you give us some specific examples of these obsessions and compulsions? Because I think seeing it in action sort of makes it more real for people listening.
Yeah, absolutely. Common obsessions include really intense contamination fears, worrying about germs, dirt, chemicals, getting sick, spreading illness. Then there are harm fears.
Harm fears.
Yeah, like the persistent anxiety that you might have left the stove on and could cause a fire, or that you accidentally hurt someone driving, or might hurt yourself. Many also experience extreme discomfort if things aren't perfectly aligned.
Ah, the symmetry thing.
Right, that pervasive need for symmetry. Or even forbidden or taboo thoughts, these sudden, intrusive, sexual, violent, or religious images that are completely against their character and cause immense shame and guilt.
That sounds awful.
It really is.
Hmm.
And of course, there's chronic doubt and uncertainty, which fuels that constant double or triple checking of actions. Did I lock the door? Did I send that email correctly? Over and over.
And what about the compulsions that go with these, the actions people feel they have to take?
Right. The compulsions are the actions they feel driven to perform to try and neutralize that anxiety.
Yeah.
So for contamination fears, it's excessive washing or cleaning.
Got it.
For harm fears, it's often repeated checking locks, appliances, maybe driving back to check something,
Right.
or mentally reviewing events again and again. For symmetry needs, it's ordering and arranging objects precisely, or maybe repeating actions until they feel right.
That feel right thing sounds exhausting.
It is, and for those really distressing, intrusive thoughts, compulsions might involve mentally neutralizing them with specific prayers or phrases, or constantly seeking reassurance from others. Did I do anything wrong? Are you sure I didn't offend you?
But you said earlier, these actions, even though they bring relief, they actually make it worse long term.
Paradoxically, yes. While they might bring momentary relief, they often strengthen the OCD cycle over time by reinforcing the idea that the obsession was dangerous and the compulsion was necessary.
Wow. And the impact on someone's daily life.
Mm-hmm.
It must be absolutely immense. Crippling for some, I'd imagine.
It absolutely can be. In fact, that's often where we see the most distress. These symptoms consume huge amounts of time and mental energy. They often interfere with daily responsibilities like work and school. Someone might spend hours rewriting homework or checking emails repeatedly. Relationship can really suffer too due to constant reassurance seeking or maybe avoiding situations.
Makes sense.
Self-esteem takes a massive hit. Many people feel deeply ashamed or think they're broken or crazy. And there are physical tolls too. Skin irritation from washing, headaches, just profound fatigue from the constant anxiety.
In severe cases.
In severe cases, yeah, OCD can be truly debilitating. It can make it incredibly difficult, sometimes impossible, to leave the house, keep a job, or maintain relationships.
Does OCD look different as people age? Like, does it present differently in a child versus, say, an older adult?
It can develop at any age, often popping up in childhood, adolescence, or early adulthood, but yeah, how it manifests can differ a bit.
How so?
Well, children, for instance, might have fears about harm coming to their parents, leading to specific bedtime rituals, or maybe repeatedly asking the same anxious questions. Teenagers might get preoccupied with appearance, academics, or contamination fears.
Okay.
Adult symptoms often revolve around work responsibilities, family safety, maybe moral concerns. And adults often become very, very good at hiding their compulsions.
Ah, the masking you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. And for older adults, OCD can persist or even emerge due to health concerns, grief, isolation. Worries about personal safety or losing independence become common themes.
So it adapts, in a way.
It can, yes. What's truly insightful here, though, is how all these varied symptoms connect to the underlying biology. If we can kind of connect this to the bigger picture of the brain, it really helps us move beyond blaming the person.
Right, it's not a choice.
Exactly. And the surprising truth is that intrusive thoughts themselves, they're actually a normal part of human thinking. Most people occasionally imagine weird, unlikely, or even disturbing scenarios. But in OCD, the brain's filter system seems to misfire.
So the brain is essentially overreacting, like a faulty smoke alarm that goes off constantly, even when there's no fire.
That's a perfect analogy, exactly. Research points to specific brain circuits becoming overactive,
Hmm.
especially areas involving the orbitofrontal cortex. You can think of that as the brain's alarm system, and the basal ganglia, which is like our habit-forming center.
Okay, the alarm in the habit center.
Right. These areas are involved in detecting danger, deciding when to act, and regulating repetitive behaviors. When they misfire in OCD, a harmless, intrusive thought gets flagged as a potential major threat. This creates a surge of anxiety,
Mm,
which
yeah.
prompts the brain to find a way to neutralize it, often through compulsions. And doing the compulsion reinforces that faulty alarm signal. It strengthens the loop.
That makes so much sense. And what about brain chemistry? I've definitely heard serotonin mentioned in relation to OCD. Is it just a simple chemical imbalance?
It's probably a bit more nuanced than just a simple imbalance, but you're absolutely right to bring up serotonin. This neurotransmitter helps regulate mood, anxiety, decision-making. It's a big player. Many researchers believe OCD involves some kind of dysregulation of serotonin levels, or maybe an issue in how it's used in the brain's pathways. That's why SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, are often prescribed.
Right, the antidepressants.
Yeah, medications like fluoxetine or sertraline, they increase the available serotonin and can help sort of calm down those overactive circuits. But beyond serotonin, studies also show that neural pathways in people with OCD tend to be overconnected in areas responsible for habit formation.
Overconnected.
Yeah, it's truly like a path in the woods that just gets deeper and more defined with every single step you take down it. Breaking the cycle really requires creating new, healthier pathways in the brain.
So it's not just someone's mindset, it's actual brain processes.
Mm-hmm.
What role do genetics and maybe environment play in this whole complex picture?
Yeah, it's definitely not caused by just one thing. It seems to be a combination of genetic vulnerability and environmental triggers. Twin and family studies show it tends to run in families, which suggests a hereditary component. But it's not destiny. Stressful life events, trauma, illness, big changes. These can sometimes trigger symptoms, especially in people who might already have a predisposition.
Just stress can kick it off.
It often seems to play a role. And in rare cases, there's something called PANDAS, pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorders associated with streptococcal infections.
Andas.
Yeah, it's linked to strep infections in children and can cause a really sudden onset of OCD symptoms. But the key takeaway here is profoundly important. OCD is not a personal flaw. It's not a weakness of character. It's a result of complex brain processes, genetics, and life experiences all interacting. It's absolutely not something you choose.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting and honestly a little frustrating when you think about it. Our sources talk constantly about the deep connection between anxiety and OCD. It's like anxiety isn't just riding shotgun, it's the entire engine just constantly revving.
It absolutely is the engine. Anxiety is the emotional spark that really sets that whole OCD cycle in motion. An intrusive thought pops up, say, the idea, I left the stove on.
Okay.
The brain reacts as if that threat is absolutely real, 100% happening. Anxiety surges, creating this intense, almost unbearable urge to do something to make that feeling stop.
And that leads to the compulsion.
Directly to the compulsion, the checking, the washing, whatever it is. And while that compulsion might temporarily lower the anxiety, here's the cruel catch. Every single time you perform it, you inadvertently teach your brain that this ritual is the only way to feel safe.
So it reinforces the original fear.
Exactly. It makes the obsession even more likely to appear again and feel even more urgent next time.
That's a truly vicious cycle, and I understand there's even kind of fear of the fear at play. Something called anticipatory anxiety.
Yes, exactly. That's a huge part of it for many people. This is when you start worrying about the possibility of having an intrusive thought before it even happens. Your body tenses up, your mind becomes hypervigilant, constantly scanning for threats. And ironically, the very act of scanning often makes the thought you desperately hope to avoid pop right into your head.
Oh, man.
It sparks the entire cycle all over again. It's utterly exhausting just thinking about living like that.
So it's like our own fight or flight response is just misfiring constantly, turning everyday thoughts into these like five-alarm emergency.
Precisely. The brain mistakes a harmless thought or maybe an unlikely possibility for a genuine immediate threat. This triggers the whole fight or flight system, floods the body with adrenaline, speeds up the heart rate, causes muscle tension, rapid breathing,
All the physical anxiety symptoms.
all of them. And these physiological changes, they actually intensify your awareness of the thoughts, making them feel even more real and urgent, which of course prompts the compulsions to try and calm the system down. But unfortunately, this just reinforces the brain's faulty threat detection process. It makes it more likely to happen next time.
And all this must lead to just constant mental exhaustion. It sounds like a full-time job just managing your own internal state.
It truly does. One of the lesser discussed effects, but a really significant one, is this constant state of hyper-awareness, always monitoring thoughts, feelings, surroundings for potential triggers.
Always on guard.
Exactly. This mental scanning is incredibly draining. It eats up time, energy, focus, leaving you feeling mentally foggy, emotionally burned out. This constant state of alert can make everyday activities feel like massive uphill battles. It strains relationships, it chips away at self-esteem. And when you're running on empty like that, your brain is far less able to challenge those intrusive thoughts, and anxiety finds even more openings to take hold.
Okay, so this raises an important question then. If anxiety is fueling this cycle, how does this actually manifest in the different phases of OCD we see? Because you mentioned it's not just cleaning and checking.
Right. Understanding the specific types is really crucial for effective treatment. Because while OCD is often stereotyped, it presents in so many different ways depending on a person's unique obsessions and compulsions. Getting the specific type right helps tailor the therapy.
That makes sense. Can you walk us through some of these distinct types beyond the stereotypes? What does OCD truly look like for different individuals?
Absolutely. So one of the most well-known is contamination fears and cleaning compulsions. We touched on this. Obsessions revolve around intense fear of germs, dirt, getting sick, spreading illness, maybe even just feeling contaminated.
Okay.
The compulsions involve excessive hand washing, sometimes to the point of raw skin, repeatedly cleaning household items, or rigidly avoiding public places, certain objects, even people sometimes. This type can be physically exhausting and incredibly socially isolating.
Yeah, I can imagine. And what about the checking we often hear about? That must be another big one.
Yes, that falls under checking rituals. The obsessions here usually stem from fears of harm or this intense sense of responsibility, like worrying incessantly you left the oven on or forgot to lock the door, or even fearing you accidentally hit someone while driving.
Oh, wow, that's intense.
Yeah. Compulsions involve repeatedly checking locks, appliances, documents, maybe mentally replaying events over and over to ensure nothing dangerous was done or said. These rituals can consume hours and hours of the day, making it incredibly hard to focus on anything else.
I've also heard of people who need things to be perfectly aligned, almost to a meticulous degree. Is that related?
Indeed, that's symmetry and ordering compulsions. The obsessions involve an intense discomfort, sometimes almost a physical sensation, when objects are uneven or asymmetrical. There's often a pervasive need for perfect alignment, or even a belief that imbalance could cause bad things to happen.
So there's a magical thinking element sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. Or just an unbearable feeling of not rightness. Compulsions include arranging items until they are absolutely symmetrical, counting steps, tapping objects a specific number of times, evening things up. While they might seem minor from the outside, the mental strain is truly overwhelming.
And then there are those deeply distressing thoughts, the ones that go against a person's values. You mentioned taboo thoughts earlier. That must be incredibly painful and confusing.
They are. Those are intrusive thoughts of harm or taboo themes, and they are profoundly distressing for the person experiencing them. Obsessions here are sudden, unwanted mental images or thoughts maybe of hurting a loved one, having unwanted sexual thoughts that feel abhorrent, or having blasphemous or morally unacceptable ideas.
That sounds terrifying.
It is. And the compulsions might involve avoiding certain places or people, mentally neutralizing the thoughts with prayers or specific counter thoughts, or constantly seeking reassurance from others that they haven't acted on these thoughts or aren't a bad person. It's absolutely crucial to understand. These thoughts do not reflect a person's actual desires or intentions.
That's so important to emphasize.
Hugely important. They are agonizing symptoms of OCD that cause intense guilt, shame, and anxiety. Understanding these different types is vital because it helps therapists tailor approaches, especially exposure and response prevention, or ERP, to effectively target the specific manifestations and ultimately give people their lives back.
So, knowing all this, what does this actually mean for getting help? I mean, our sources are incredibly clear. Diagnosis is the first crucial step, and then, thankfully, there's a real path forward.
That's absolutely right. Recognizing the signs of OCD, maybe in yourself or someone you care about, that's just the start. Receiving a proper diagnosis from a qualified professional is what truly opens the door to effective treatment and recovery.
Why is that formal diagnosis so critical?
Well, it's essential because, surprisingly perhaps, OCD symptoms can overlap with other conditions, things like generalized anxiety disorder, depression, even ADHD sometimes. So a thorough professional assessment is critical to make sure it is OCD and to rule out other possibilities.
Okay, makes sense.
Plus, the sooner OCD is diagnosed, the sooner treatment can begin. And early intervention can often prevent symptoms from worsening and becoming really entrenched over time. Seeking a diagnosis is never, ever a sign of weakness. It's an act of courage and really important self-advocacy.
So how do clinicians actually figure this out? How do they measure it? Are there specific tools that help them pinpoint OCD accurately?
Absolutely. Typically, they start with a very detailed conversation about your experiences. They'll ask about when symptoms began, how often they occur, what they feel like, and importantly, how they affect your daily life.
The impact part again.
Exactly. They aim to understand both the specific thoughts, obsessions, and behaviors, compulsions involved, and whether they follow those characteristic OCD patterns. They also assess the level of distress you're experiencing and how much the symptoms interfere with your functioning, work, school, relationships, just overall well-being.
And what about the structured tools you mentioned, like questionnaires?
Yes, clinicians often use a combination of structured assessment tools alongside the interview. These might include the Yale-Brown Obsessive Compulsive Scale, the YBOCS.
YBOCS, okay.
Yeah, it's considered the gold standard questionnaire for measuring the severity of both obsessions and compulsions. There's also the Obsessive Compulsive Inventory, or OCI, which can help identify the specific nature of symptoms like, is it mostly checking or contamination fears or hoarding, etc.
Got it.
And of course, the clinical interview itself is crucial. Those open-ended discussions allow you to describe your experiences in your own words. Using a combination of these tools helps create a full picture for an accurate diagnosis, which is key to getting on the right treatment path.
Okay, so once diagnosed, what are the treatments? What are the evidence-based approaches that offer real hope?
The gold standard, the most effective treatment for OCD, is a specific type of cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, called exposure and response prevention, ERP.
ERP, okay, how does that work?
ERP works by gradually, carefully exposing a person to their fears or triggers the things that set off their obsessions without allowing them to perform the usual compulsive response.
Ah, so you face the fear, but don't do the ritual.
Exactly. Over time, with guidance from the therapist, this literally retrains the brain. It learns to tolerate the discomfort and anxiety without needing the compulsion. The anxiety actually decreases naturally on its own if you wait it out.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Someone with contamination fears might start by touching a doorknob, maybe one they perceive as dirty, and then actively resist the urge to immediately wash their hands. They learn through experience that the anxiety spikes, but then it comes down and nothing terrible happens.
So you're essentially helping the brain learn that the alarm system is faulty and the threat isn't actually real? That sounds incredibly challenging, but I can see how it would be effective.
It is challenging, no doubt. It takes courage, but it's highly effective for most people.
Are there medications that can help as well? Maybe make ERP easier?
Yes, absolutely. Certain medications, particularly those SSRIs we talked about, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors like fluoxetine or sertraline, can significantly reduce OCD symptoms for many people. They seem to help by increasing serotonin levels in the brain.
Okay.
Sometimes higher doses than those used for depression are needed for OCD, and it's important to know it can take a while, maybe 8 to 12 weeks, to see the full benefits, so patience is key.
Can medication work on its own? Or is it best with therapy?
Medication can be effective on its own for some people, but research consistently shows that a combination approach blending ERP therapy with medication often yields the best results, especially for people with more severe symptoms. The medication can sometimes reduce the anxiety enough to make engaging in ERP feel more manageable.
That makes sense.
The key takeaway here is that effective OCD treatment isn't about curing it overnight. It's about giving the brain new ways to respond, reducing the intensity and frequency of symptoms, and ultimately helping people regain freedom in their daily lives.
Okay, so beyond that formal treatment, what can we do day to day? How can someone manage OCD and start building a life that isn't dictated by it? because our sources provide some really powerful, practical strategies for living with it.
Absolutely. This is so important. One crucial area is learning to gently break those compulsive cycles. Instead of trying to stop a compulsion cold turkey, which can feel impossible,
Right.
you might start by delaying it, even for a short period, say just 5 or 10 minutes. This helps build tolerance for the discomfort, the anxiety.
Small steps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Small, manageable steps. It's also incredibly helpful to identify your triggers. Maybe keep a little log track the situations, places, or thoughts that tend to spark compulsions. Knowing them helps you prepare mindfully.
Okay.
And crucially, practice self-compassion over self-criticism. This is huge. If you slip back into old patterns, try not to beat yourself up. Avoid that harsh self-judgment. Recognizing a setback without shame makes it infinitely easier to get back on track and try again.
That self-compassion piece sounds key.
It really is. You can even apply micro-ERP principles in daily life, small doses of facing fears, like touching that doorknob and just waiting a little bit longer before washing your hands.
I imagine building a support network would be really vital too.
Oh.
You mentioned OCD can feel so incredibly isolating.
It truly is. Connection is such a powerful antidote to the secrecy and loneliness that often come with OCD and can actually make it worse.
So who should be in that network?
Choose trusted allies, friends, family members, maybe peers who either understand OCD or are genuinely willing to learn about it without judgment. Support groups can also be amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, both in person and online. They offer empathy, validation, and practical tips from people who really get it because they've been there.
That shared experience must be powerful.
Hugely powerful. And even when symptoms improve, having periodic check-ins, maybe with a therapist or the support group, can help reinforce coping skills and prevent relapse. One key thing, though, is to clearly communicate to your support network how they can best help.
What do you mean?
Well, for instance, letting them know that encouraging your coping strategies is helpful, but providing constant reassurance when you're anxious actually isn't helpful. It can inadvertently feed the OCD cycle.
Ah, right. Avoiding enabling. And recovery isn't a straight line, is it? I mean, you hear that a lot. So setting realistic goals must be key to maintaining motivation.
Indeed. Recovery from OCD is rarely a smooth, straight, upward path. It's often more like navigating a series of hills and plateaus. There will be progress, and there might be setbacks.
Okay.
So focus on progress, not perfection. Reducing compulsions by, say, 20% is still a meaningful, incredible step forward. Break bigger goals into smaller, achievable milestones, like this week, I'll check the door lock only once when I leave instead of aiming for I'll stop all checking behaviors immediately.
Makes sense. More manageable.
Much more. And celebrate the small wins. Acknowledge them. Even if it's just a mental high five for getting through a tough situation without resorting to a ritual. And adapt your goals as you grow. As symptoms lessen, your goals can shift toward broader life aspirations, hobbies, relationships, career goals. The key takeaway for coping is that it's not about erasing symptoms overnight. It's about cultivating strategies for more freedom, more stability, and again, that profound self-compassion.
Beyond these direct coping strategies, are there other things, like holistic or lifestyle approaches that can complement formal treatment and just generally make life feel a bit better?
Definitely. And these are incredibly supportive tools, though it's important to remember they are complements, not replacements, for professional evidence-based treatment like ERP.
Got it. So what kind of things are we talking about?
Well, mindfulness and meditation are really powerful. Mindfulness teaches you to observe your thoughts and feelings without judgment, to notice them, maybe label them gently. Ah, that's an OCD thought. And then let them pass without engaging or fighting them.
So not getting caught up in the thought.
Exactly. Things like mindful breathing, body scans, or using guided meditation apps. Headspace, Calm, Insight Timer, there are lots out there, can significantly reduce overall anxiety and improve emotional regulation over time.
Okay, mindfulness. What else?
Journaling and thought reframing can also be really transformative. Sometimes just doing a brain dump, getting all those swirling thoughts out onto paper can clear mental clutter.
Yeah, I find that helpful sometimes.
It can be. And then you can look at those thoughts more objectively and maybe challenge them. Is this thought based on fact, or is it just fear talking? Even simple gratitude journaling can help shift your focus away from constant threat detection toward things you appreciate.
Shifting focus. Nice.
And since your brain and body are so deeply interconnected, exercise and nutrition for brain health are crucial. Physical activity, like even just a brisk walk, releases endorphins, reduces stress hormones. Think of it like giving your brain a mini vacation.
I like that.
Even 20 minutes a day can make a difference. And good nutrition, things like omega-3 fatty acids, balanced meals to keep blood sugar stable, staying hydrated, all this helps strengthen your mental baseline, making you more resilient.
And what about connecting with the outside world? Or maybe just your immediate surroundings when you're feeling overwhelmed?
Yes. Nature immersion and grounding techniques can have a profoundly calming effect on the nervous system. They help lower cortisol, that stress hormone.
Like going for a walk in the park.
Exactly. Or even just sitting outside, forest bathing, if you have access to woods. Even simple things like walking barefoot on grass, sometimes called earthing, can be grounding. Or using the 5-4-3-2-1 technique.
What's that?
It's a simple sensory grounding exercise. You just pause and name 5 things you can see right now, 4 things you can physically touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste.
Bring you back to your senses.
Precisely. It pulls you out of those obsessive thought loops by anchoring you firmly in the here and now, in the present moment. The key takeaway for all these holistic supports is that they're like the essential nutrients and water that help your main recovery efforts grow. They're fundamental for a balanced, sustainable path forward.
Okay, so knowing all this, for
Okay.
you, our listener, how do you actually find the right help?
Hmm.
And maybe just as importantly, if you're supporting someone with OCD, how do you do it effectively without inadvertently enabling their symptoms?
Finding the right therapist is absolutely crucial. Number one, you really want to look for someone who specializes in treating OCD.
Specialization is key.
Yes, particularly someone trained and experienced in exposure and response prevention, ERP, or at least CBT with a strong ERP component. Always check their credentials. Are they licensed? What's their training? Do they belong to professional organizations?
And what about the fit, the relationship with the therapist?
That's hugely important too. An initial consultation call or meeting is a great time to ask questions and get a feel for them. Do you feel safe? Respected? Understood? Good signs include consistent communication, clear treatment plans that you develop together, and a sense of mutual trust. If it doesn't feel right, it's okay to look for someone else.
Okay. And beyond individual therapy, what about support groups? Are they all in person or are there online options too?
Both. Online and in-person support groups offer incredible benefits. Just knowing you're not alone, sharing experiences, getting mutual encouragement, it can significantly reduce that feeling of isolation.
Yeah.
Online options, forums, chat groups, virtual meetups can be excellent, especially for anonymity or if mobility is an issue. Local community groups, often peer-led or run by mental health charities, offer that face-to-face connection. When participating, just remember to set healthy boundaries for yourself, respect others' experiences, and maybe be mindful of potential triggers in the discussion.
Good advice. What about other resources? Books, websites? There's so much information out there. How do you sift through it all and find what's reliable?
That's a great question because there is a lot out there and not all of it is helpful. It's really important to find credible, science-backed resources.
Okay.
Look for evidence-based self-help books written by actual clinicians or researchers who specialize in OCD. For websites, stick to well-established mental health organizations like the International OCD Foundation, IOCDF, or National Mental Health Institutes and OCD-specific foundations. They prioritize credible, up-to-date content based on research.
So avoid random blogs or forums, maybe?
Generally, yes, unless they're moderated by professionals or linked to trusted organizations. And don't forget helplines. 247 crisis lines, mental health support numbers, even text services can provide immediate help in a tough moment or direct you to good local resources. Always try to verify resources, look for professional endorsements, check if the content seems up to date, and make sure the focus is on recovery and evidence-based strategies, not fear-mongering or quick fixes.
Okay, that's super helpful. Now, shifting gears a bit, for those listening who are supporting someone with OCD, a partner, a child, a friend, this can be incredibly challenging. It must be so hard for loved ones not to fall into enabling patterns.
It truly is one of the hardest things for families and loved ones, but it's vital to learn how to support effectively.
So what should they say? What's helpful?
Helpful things to say include validating their struggle. I believe you. I can see this is incredibly hard for you right now. I'm here for you. Sometimes asking, would you like me to just listen or would you like help problem solving can be good. And always, always acknowledge the effort they're making to fight their symptoms because it is a fight.
And perhaps more importantly, what should they absolutely avoid saying?
Oh, definitely things to avoid. Never say, just stop thinking about it or snap out of it. This completely invalidates their struggle and makes them feel even more alone or misunderstood.
Yeah, that sounds dismissive.
Totally. Don't say that's silly or you're overreacting, as it minimizes the reality of their condition. And absolutely avoid things like, why can't you just be normal? That just reinforces shame. And crucially, try hard to avoid giving constant reassurance when they're seeking it due to an obsession.
Because that feeds the compulsion.
Exactly. It can become another ritual, another safety behavior that maintains the OCD cycle. It feels helpful in the moment, but it undermines their long-term recovery.
Wow, okay. So how can loved ones be patient, which they need to be, without inadvertently enabling the OCD? That seems like a really delicate balance.
It absolutely is a delicate balance. Patience is key, understanding that recovery is nonlinear, that there will be good days and setbacks, and that's normal. Give them space when they're anxious, but remain emotionally available. Let them know you're still there. Not enabling means gently but firmly resisting participating in their rituals or compulsions, even if it feels like you're helping them feel better in the short term. Instead, offer comfort in ways that don't reinforce the OCD behaviors. Maybe offer a distraction, suggest a grounding exercise together, or just sit with them while they write out the anxiety. Encourage their independence in facing anxiety triggers and managing their own distress, supporting the skills they're learning in therapy.
And finally, how can supporters best encourage someone to get professional help, especially if the person is hesitant or maybe ashamed?
That's a tough one, too. Start by normalizing therapy and medication. Frame them as valid, helpful tools, not signs of weakness or failure. Offer practical support, like helping them research OCD specialists in the area, or even offering to accompany them to an initial appointment if they'd like that.
Make it less daunting.
Exactly. Maybe share some success stories from reputable sources, stories of hope and recovery to inspire them. And frame seeking help as an act of immense strength. You could say something like, this isn't about being broken, it's about building the tools you need to live the life you want. The key takeaway for supporters is that it requires this powerful mix of compassion, healthy boundaries, and gentle encouragement toward professional treatment. Your role isn't to fix them, but to be a steady, supportive anchor while they bravely navigate their own recovery journey.
So living with OCD can be incredibly challenging. We've definitely established that. But our sources and everything you've shared are incredibly clear. It is not a life sentence of fear and repetition. There's real, tangible hope.
That's the central and most empowering message, I think. With the right understanding, with effective evidence-based treatment like ERP, and with compassionate support from professionals, from loved ones, from peers, individuals truly can reclaim their time, their energy, and their mental space. They can build a life that is truly their own, not one dictated by the demands of the disorder.
It really is about empowerment, pure and simple. OCD is a condition you can manage. It doesn't have to be your entire identity. Every single small step toward understanding it better and toward self-care and effective treatment is a victory worth celebrating.
Absolutely. And perhaps something for you, our listener, to think about. Considering how powerful and sometimes misdirected the brain's alarm system can be, what small mindful step could you take today, just one small thing, to help your own brain differentiate between maybe just a fleeting thought and a true threat? Even if it's completely unrelated to OCD, just practicing that pause and assessment.